about how Jews and Gentiles alike are reconciled to God, and in that way reconciled to each other. It's not two churches, it's one body, he says earlier in this chapter 4. One faith, one Lord, one baptism. Is one church. It's not a Jewish church or a Gentile church. It's not an African church or an American church. It's one church. And in the 4th chapter, he talks about some of what does that mean to be reconciled to God? How does that change your life? And so that's what we've been talking about. Chapter 4 talks about that change of life. And if we jump down to verse 24, that's in the middle of a sentence for Paul, because his thoughts come at great length. We're looking at Ephesians chapter 4, jumping in we'll start at verse 22 to get the complete thought. The consequences of being reconciled to God and one another. He says, you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. The new self, the reconciled self. And I began to think about, what does it mean? To them, it was new because they come to Christ not long ago. Paul, maybe through Paul's preaching as he's worked in Ephesus, maybe through the efforts of others, but it's a new life. And in our lives, some of us have been Christians a long time. Do we still look upon it as a new life? And I just began to think about the newness of the Christian life. How do you maintain that spirit of newness and that excitement? And I began to think, this is a kind of a time of the year when people begin or think about things that are new. Next week begins a new year, according to the calendar. And Christmas involves some new things, doesn't it? Often there's new gifts that you receive, maybe new things that you cook or new things that you. What can we do to maintain the newness, if you will, of the Christian life? Is it possible? Is it something we should be doing? We need to maintain that life that he describes here as a new one for those who've come to Christ. But sometimes it kind of wears off the enthusiasm. How do you keep new as a Christian? Yes, sir.
Well, Paul talks about this in Colossians 2. And in
Okay.
Colossians 3, he says, have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge of his image and his creator. So the more that we are in God's word and learning about God, we're learning new things all the time in his word. That is a way of being renewed. It's a way of staying.
Stay in God's word, that's right. Yes.
I was just going to say that we make changes that are pleasing to God.
Okay.
And try best not to fall backwards, but to continue to go forward.
Yeah.
and, changing things about ourselves.
It's a constant thing, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
process to become like Jesus. Earlier in the chapter, he says, until we reach unity, which is one of the big goals, isn't it? Until. And it's something, as Patrick said in his sermon, there's always things in our lives that we need to say no to. Maybe some things that we've allowed to be there for a long time, we need to start saying no to be more like Jesus. And I thought of what are some of the things that Christmas is something that's always new, isn't it? It's something that you look forward to. It's always new. Why? What makes it new? Well, the fellowship is part of it, isn't it? And we talked about that earlier in this study, how one of the things that the leaders do is to prepare God's people for works of service. Christmas, sometimes one of the new things about it is you get together and you do some things maybe to help other people that you don't do throughout the year. Here we put the shoe boxes together and deliver them to homeless shelters. We give out the hams and turkeys in our pantry. What else do we do this new?
I think too that with renewing, that is being active. I think that, when you go into neighborhoods and you are preaching the gospel, when you have people in your home and you are teaching the gospel, I think when you go to nursing homes, I think that when you are fellowshipping, that it's an active term, that so you need to be doing something, and what you're talking about too. And like going to or putting shoe boxes together and doing those kinds of things is very active. So it's not withdrawing, it's sharing yourself with other people and doing things.
It's something that you do together. That's one of the things about Christmas, isn't it? You get together, see some people that maybe you haven't seen in a while, or that you don't see, and like you say, have people in your home, maybe visiting other people's homes. That keeps it new.
I was thinking of the passage in the Old Testament, and I don't remember the beginning of it, but it's about the blessings of God, and it says they are new every morning.
Okay.
Great is thy faithfulness. So every morning, every day, we should be grateful for the blessings from God. But when you also talk about things we should say no to, I would imagine that the temptations that Satan is going to put in our way, those are also probably new every morning, because Satan is also active. And so we have to remember the blessings and the faithfulness of God so that we can resist those new temptations that come along.
So,
occasion of the Lord, any occasion that concerning the Lord always make a Christian eager to come unity in the spirit. Every occasion that concerning the church or the Lordship, it make everybody eager to come to unity in the spirit of the Lord. Yeah. So, as being a Christmas or anything that we are concerned of, that this week we are doing this week we are doing this week we are doing that, you make everybody feel part and parcel of it in the Lord.
Okay. Yeah, that's important. Well, anyway, that's just what kind of struck me as I looked at that verse where we had left off last time in the context of where we are now. Newness of life. We were raised to walk in newness of life. And that newness is something that can stay with us if we work at it. He goes on in this showing, we could spend the whole time on that, but so we get into verse 25. He continues on with some points on how is that life new? And he says, therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to his neighbor, for we're all members of one body. And that's the contrast with the way of the world. It's not necessarily always the way of truth, is it? It's, the way of the world is to speak what's convenient. And in the world, we have two different systems, right? There's ordinary speech, and then there's speech when you're under oath, under penalties of perjury. Then it's supposed to be true, but otherwise, whatever feels good. But when you sign your income tax return under penalties of perjury, or when we put you under oath for purposes of a deposition or a court hearing, then if you don't tell the truth, there's consequences. But he's saying to the Christian, you should always tell the truth, always, because you're part of a body, and you want to be true to your body, and that's what the church is like. And so we need that in the church, don't we? Truthfulness. We can rely on one another just as we rely upon our physical selves. So what else is a distinguishing character? So we kind of take that for granted, tell the truth. But it was a big change for these Gentiles living in Ephesus. If you get away with cheating somebody with false scales when you were selling meat or grain, but once you become a Christian, you don't do that. I mean, it's something we take for granted, but it's worth saying. It's a big change from the way of the world. He says, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Anger is something that we all have from time to time, but don't sin. Don't give it dominion. Don't give it the opportunity to affect what you say and do. What do you do when you're angry? Usually you lash out at somebody else. I've learned in some ways, if I get angry, and I do sometimes, and we all get angry at trivial things. We lose something, we break something, or, we can't get the computer to cooperate. If somebody cuts us off on the road, we get angry. And instead of lashing out, one thing I've kind of learned to do is I say, Lord, I'm angry. I'm really angry about this. And it helps just to let that out to God before I lash out at somebody in my family or somebody else. Tell God that you're angry. That's a prayer, just a short prayer. Sometimes we think we need to, get in a quiet place and get down on our knees to pray. And we need that sometimes. But sometimes we just need to tell God, this is the way I feel, help me to deal with that. Whether it's sadness, loneliness, anger, just a short prayer to say, Lord, I'm feeling not good right now for some reason. Anyway, anger, it gives the devil a foothold to dwell upon that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes us do things we're going to regret. Sometimes when you get angry, you feel like throwing things, breaking things. That's what comes to mind. You do things that you regret. Sometimes you say things you regret. So he says, deal with that. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. Resolve it. If you've said something, maybe you need to try to say something. You can't take it back. You say, I take that back. No, you just have to say, I'm sorry.
Have you, you go to bed or, you try to go to sleep and you're angry, you can't sleep. And so what are you doing? In your head, you're going over it again and again, and it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, really good advice is get it done before the day is over so that you're not brooding about it.
Yeah.
Because
I have a somewhat silly example of that. I work at a hotel,
Oh.
so guests will find things about the room that they don't like. And then, things happen, these rooms are lived in, okay? When you check in, we do the best we can to clean it, but sometimes in the corner, there may be something missed. And so a guest will see that and then they're looking for other things, but then they don't call us. And so they're going to bed angry that this and this and this didn't happen. There's not enough towels. Well, now they're just sitting there thinking all night, we don't have enough towels. This is not clean, blah, blah, but they're not calling us for us to rectify the situation. And so at checkout the next morning, we say, how was your stay? And they say, terrible.
And then they rate you down.
Right, and the best thing to do is just cool down and be like, hey, we noticed this, we need this, I can help, I can fix all that for you. I can get you a better room, or we can get you towels, whatever. And so I think it's a silly comparison, but an apt comparison.
Yeah.
If you're angry about something, yes, pray to God, like, okay, I'm angry about this. And then you kind of release that. You've shared that, confessed that, and now, okay, I'm angry about this. Now what's the next step to help me get rid of this anger? What needs to happen? How can I resolve this?
Yeah.
And just kind of, who do I need to talk to? Do I need to ask forgiveness from someone? Or can I just say, this person maybe wronged me, it doesn't even know that they did. And just say, hey, this happened. I don't think you meant any harm, but I just feel such and such, and you give them the opportunity to make it right.
And I think you mentioned communication.
Yeah.
Sometimes it helps to mention to someone else, I'm angry. And maybe they'll give you a towel or,
Yeah.
Maybe they can help to deal with the situation. Maybe they can just give you a pat on the back and say, I'm sorry, I care about you. That's all part of being a part of the body. That's emphasized over and over in these chapters, isn't it? That we're part of the body. We're part of the family. We think about doing these things, with our family, but we ought to know each other well enough to be able to say that and do that, to talk to one another about our feelings.
Colin, I have a question. So you said that when you get angry, that you'll say a prayer, you'll acknowledge I'm angry, but does it go further than that? Because I'm always interested to know how people handle anger, because you have to know how to do it before it actually comes. And so you said that you say that prayer, but what happens? Are you praying that God would take this feeling away, or what happens after you say the prayer, or do you just say the prayer?
Well, you kind of hope that God, maybe you follow that, help me to resolve what's happening here. Like I say, it could be anything, you've lost something, or maybe, like I say, the computer's not. You hope that God will help you to resolve that, and maybe give you a clear enough mind to handle the situation without being dominated by emotion. But
So it's not just, you don't just say, I'm angry, it's kind of like a prayer, help
yeah,
me to
I guess it
get through
is.
this.
But sometimes it's just to express to God. Some people swear, you've heard some people get angry and say some words that you don't like to hear, but wouldn't it be better just to say, I'm angry, Father, help me to deal with this situation? I guess that's what follow-up is. I don't know, anybody else?
Well, you know, Al,
Secrets?
Excuse me, hi, everybody.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm like you, Alan. When I get angry and stuff, like I'm in a program and I say the serenity prayer, and that helps me.
Okay.
God grant me the serenity. Yeah, I say that, and it helps me calm down, and it helps me get, when I'm angry, I say that serenity prayer, and it helps me a lot.
Okay. What is that prayer? Can you tell us?
Yeah, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Okay. There's wisdom in that, isn't there?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, Linda?
oh, I was just gonna say, when I get angry, I usually voice, or
Most of
lash
us
out or whatever
do,
you wanna
yeah.
call it. But now I find myself, I shut down and I don't say anything, but in my mind, it's going on and on and on and on. So usually, there's only two of us in the household. If I know that it's something that I lashed out about, I'll, go and I'll apologize and say I'm sorry or whatever. And once I do that, all those hard feelings, the way I was feeling down, everything just vanishes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like taking a load off of me.
Because you have not.
I call it venting, like if you're using a pressure cooker, and when whatever the time is up, you have to vent it.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to let the pressure off before you open it up, because otherwise it's gonna explode in your face.
Right.
So for me, that's something, Dan is often the beneficiary of my.
I know what she's meant.
Um,
I have to say she has some healthy ways of doing it,
Yeah.
like getting out of the house. One
Yeah.
time she went out in the car and sat for 2 hours. Turn the radio on, and I dealt with the kids, something like that. That's healthy.
Well,
Getting back on a new person. Those things happen, but you have to learn,
That
I
was a
think,
long.
you have to vent healthily. And a prayer is one of the best ways to do it.
It tastes like peppermint.
And that just sent chills down my spine, down my arms.
Okay.
You brought up an excellent point that you shut down. I think we all do this. We shut down and go inside and think about it,
Right.
and physiologically, when what you're thinking about wires, and the more you think about it, the stronger that wire gets built, and if that same thing happens again, you're going to fall into that rut again, that routine, and it's going to strengthen and strengthen. So we need things that disrupt that thinking, like prayer,
Yeah.
like separating ourselves, going out in the car, or taking a walk. Walking in nature is very healing. And so you need things that disrupt that, and sharing with someone, venting, or just journaling, a prayer can be
Yeah.
that for people,
Yeah.
like just going into a corner, like, God, this is what's going on. And I think kind of that next step is asking, you said, ask God, help me to resolve this, but I think it's also, God, send your spirit to guide me, to
Yeah.
direct me
Yeah.
to the resolution. Because that's what God sent is, that great helper for us to lead us in those times. So disrupting that pathway of negative thinking and because usually it's not as bad as we think it is.
Yeah,
Right,
that's right.
right.
99% of the time, it's not as bad as we
Right.
think. And we just need to disrupt that thinking.
It's good to be a Christian.
Yeah.
Amen.
Feel like a Christian. If you feel as a Christian, all these things that we are talking about, you see that you find it easy sometimes. The thing comes, God, take control of this.
Yeah.
I don't want people to see me different from the way you want me. Then you see that immediately you will come different. You see, this very morning, if you ask my wife, I work at night, I came in the morning. When I came, somebody is parking on my spot. I see this water.
I'll make it.
I have to go around looking for different place to park, but I get nowhere else to park. And I came back, but I don't know who is parking there too.
Yeah.
And I don't want to call a towing car to come and tow that car.
Yeah.
Then they get mad at you.
Exactly. You see,
Don't break your window.
so I call my wife, this is what is happening.
Yeah.
That's why I'm out here going around. So on the way, I have to go and jog somewhere and then tell them to hurry up so that I can move from there, so that where I can't, where somebody's fault, so that he will not get under, of me. You see, to save somebody else. If I'm not a Christian, truly, believe me, I'll call it. It's good to be a Christian.
Yeah.
It's part of the peace that Jesus brings us.
Yeah.
He makes us more peaceable people.
That's it.
Otherwise, we'd be more violent. Definitely.
Again, that's part of being a body. You think of somebody else besides yourself.
Yes.
You don't want to, maybe you're angry, and we know when someone in the household or somebody else is getting angry, and we can react in a way that kind of keeps the fire going, or we can try to bank the fire.
I also think that that's part of putting on the new self. I mean, we can see how we react differently to things today than we would have years ago.
Yeah.
Because, years ago, you may have had that car towed.
Of course.
There's no doubt.
But at least left a nasty note on his windshield. But now you can see that you just want to react differently to the things that the world throws at you. And that's renewal.
And it's a process as we mature.
Yeah, I appreciate you spending time on this, because I think that oftentimes we go through these, we bulldoze through these verses, and this is really important to talk about, because we all do get angry, and it's nice to hear how people handle it.
Yeah, thank you for your comments and wisdom. Any more?
So did Jesus get angry? That's, so people argue about that. And when,
People identify when he was casting the money changers from the temple, but the scripture doesn't say that he became angry there.
Doesn't have to say it.
Although his reaction was one that you'd think, but I picture him more in a disciplined, procedure there. With, he's in control in casting the money changers from the temple because they corrupted the house of God. He's jealous for the Lord there.
sometimes doing something might be helpful, so you're urged to throw something, you know?
Okay.
I don't know, that's
But
all.
I don't think Jesus was running amok in those situations. What we know, it was one at the beginning of his ministry and one at the end. The only time that Jesus is described as being angry is when Mark chapter 3. Let's see. He goes into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." Then Jesus asked him, "Which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they remained silent. Then he looked around at them in anger. And deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts, said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. That's the only time when Jesus is described as being angry. He's angry and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts, or the hardness of their hearts, the old version says. And
So what exactly is he angry about?
well, here's a man, he's gonna heal, he heals this man, and yet they think that he shouldn't do it because it's a Sabbath day. And he's saying, how can you be so blind? I'm trying to give a blessing, and you're criticizing it. I can see that he would be frustrated by that, can't you? He looked around at him in anger.
Is he angry at, sorry,
No, I mean, instead of saying, or acknowledging the great thing that God
Yeah,
has done, they're criticizing it. And so, they're being so
Nitpicky.
nitpicky to the the letter of the law, that they're forgetting what it truly, or what has, truly been done here.
yeah.
They had lost the spirit of the law, that's what happened. And that's what Jesus brought, a new spirit to the law. I mean, there was some spirit to the law. It kind of got lost on all the legalism, so he's trying to bring it back around. So that's why he got.
What's the consequence? Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. Notice that the Pharisees, strict Jews, are cooperating with the Herodians, which is the party that is, working with the Roman authority. But anyway,
In one way or other, did Pharisees do something wrong? I don't know, because to me, I don't call it they are doing something wrong, because they are defending what they have as God, prepared them for. That's what they are. From beginning, this is how we follow our rules. That very day, we don't do this, we don't do this, we don't do that. If you tell us to do this right now, you are bringing in something what new to it. So we won't allow that thing to happen. On their defense, that's how it is. That means with Jesus should know that they don't know, and they don't know him too. That's it. That's why the brother was saying, why is he angry for?
Okay, so the what isn't mentioned is the understanding that the Pharisees have taken the law. And all of these layers to it that were never put there by God. They created their own rules of saying, you can't do this on the Sabbath, but God never said those things.
Yeah.
So that's why Jesus is asking them a question, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil. It's always okay to do good, doesn't matter what day it is.
Yeah.
And there is nothing in the Sabbath that says you can't do good, because in another place he says, if your ox falls into a ditch on the Sabbath, would you not go get him out? And of course they would. So if this man is healed on the Sabbath, that's a good thing, and he knows that they know that. So he's angry because they are purposely overlooking the truth because they just want to kill him. Although they know that he's doing God's work. Nicodemus says it when he comes. He says, we know that you are from God. Because you couldn't do these things if you weren't. So they know, but they are so bent on getting rid of him. They just overlook all those good things he did, and they blame it on us. They do it on the Sabbath.
Now, the human reaction here would, these guys are blocking, I'm trying to do a good work and these people are blocking, I'm gonna zap them. But no, Jesus goes ahead and heals the man, and he deals with that anger, if you will. I think you mentioned other times in Jesus' career when we see him dealing with his disciples, it doesn't necessarily say he became angry, but we can sense some frustration. You know, Peter, don't you have any faith? Well, and the other disciples, he's frustrated.
Thomas,
Yeah, we all have that impatience, to put it mildly, with one another. So anyway,
Well, also, let's not discount how hard it is to change. So these
Okay.
Pharisees have, out of a desire for righteousness, have added these things. They're like, okay, we fear God, we respect God, He's made these rules. How far away can we separate ourselves from even, don't even go near breaking these laws? And so they miss the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
When you spend your life believing these laws are here to protect you, and then God is standing right in front of you saying, you got it wrong. That
would make you angry.
And then you're like, we've all, that's when anger flares up in me, is when I'm caught in something I know I shouldn't have done, or I know I could do better about, and that's when I lash out. I'm like, well, I don't, and so change is hard. It's like, okay, I see that, and you caught me, but I've hardened my heart so much that I don't see how I can correct it.
But isn't that the danger in you having your own righteousness, like you making up what you think is righteous? Because it feels like that's what they did. Like they had the law, but then they're gonna add to it so they can act as if they're even more righteous. And there's a danger in that.
Yeah. There is, and that Paul tells us several times in his letters, we don't have righteousness of our own.
Yes.
It's God's righteousness of us, right?
Yeah, they became angry and frustrated. So what was the reaction? Silence the messenger. Don't deal with the message. It makes me uncomfortable. But we've got to silence this guy because he makes us uncomfortable. And so again, they can do some things that is beyond what they should do, certainly, but is inconsistent with their religion to deal with the Herodians, just as we see here. Anyway, that's a type of anger. What else? Do not give the devil a foothold. Yeah, their anger gave the devil a foothold. And he motivates these very religious people to crucify the Son of God.
Thou shalt not kill.
Yeah,
One of the
yeah, that's right.
main
That's
things.
So, well, maybe we'll cover it. He who has been stealing must steal no longer. It's pretty logical. But, think of others, but must work, doing something useful with his own hands, that he may have something to share with those in need. Again, that's always impressed me, because most of us go to work, when we go to work,
Mhm.
to make money for ourselves. And this verse is saying, go to work with the thought of making money that you can give to somebody else.
Right, how many people do that?
How often have you got up, Dan, early? And I know you got up early in the morning before you were, how often have you got up early in the morning and got out on the road and it's 0 degrees, so you could have something to give to those in need? But that's what he says here, to have some thoughts for others.
Should become part of our lifestyle, that's all. We're
Yeah,
always thinking of others as we go along.
yeah,
We work not only for our families, but to support the church and help other people.
yeah,
So that's, I think, what Patrick was talking about this morning, that it becomes, it's our lifestyle.
yeah. And I think, we've mentioned it before, you've retired, I'm mostly retired, and one of the questions you ask yourself is, well, once I retire, am I gonna be able to give some money to the church anymore? Am I gonna have enough to share with those in need? And that's one of the things you take into account when you make those decisions. Am I gonna be able to support the church? Maybe that's something that we take into account when we're taking a different job, when we're looking around, what are we gonna do? Am I gonna be able to support the church, or am I gonna just, support myself? Again, that's part of being the family, he says here. You gotta think of other people also. That they tell you, this time of year, you get all kinds of solicitations, right? Because they think people's hearts are gonna be tender at the end of the year, and they're gonna give for tax purposes, of
Well,
course.
you're in.
But also, just people are in a giving mood. That's why you get solicitation from every organization you've ever heard of.
You're in giving.
You're in giving,
A lot of it.
we ought to do it throughout the year. And I think, we do to support the church. As a treasurer, I give thanks constantly because we have enough to pay our bills and have a little more. We have had some extraordinary needs in the congregation and among those that we support in the mission field. And we're able to reach out and help financially. And so I'm thankful for those who are generous. And
I still want to go back to our conversation because
Sure.
between the Jews and Jesus Christ, to me, still, I'm thinking of the rabbis and the Pharisees.
yeah,
Yeah, all that they were doing in ignorance. I'm still thinking of that. In Jesus' feeling, why Jesus is the Lord, he knows everything. They don't know anything at all. Let me say they don't know anything. They are just following what has been laid down for them. Let me come like Paul like this. Paul is among the persecuting the Christians. Is it not ignorance? It's not that he knows, but he is doing it outward. No. You see? So I'm still thinking that what is going on there that time is something like ignorance. They don't know that if we do this on this day, it's good. That it's not against our this thing, but we are just going blunt about it. You see? Because the Lord himself said, Father, forgive them because they don't know what they were doing. Stephen also used the same word. They don't know what they were doing. You see, but they are defending something. They said they were defending something. Paul said they were defending something until they realized that, oh, all that I'm doing is ignorant. You see? So I don't know, sometimes I was very careful to blame the Pharisees, they are doing and this kind of thing, because I think all that make the Bible fulfill is goals, or I don't know, but I'm still thinking of it. Because everything, as I'm a Christian right now, everything, the Bible says, I should be perfect as my Lord is perfect. So I'm always trying my way to be perfect as the Lord is perfect.
Yes.
But I know definitely that I can't be like him. No, I can't be like him. So there is ignorant things I'll be doing, thinking that I'm trying my best to be there. You see, the brother always travel to Africa, let me say South Africa, and he can, said about Christmas. There you don't, like the way we have a unity in Christmas here like this, there is not like that in Church of Christ. Ask him. Am I right?
No.
That's it. You see, because to me, I learned a lot from here. Yes. I told my wife, you see how the things go. There we are doing some things, we think that that is the best way we should go. That's what the Bible was saying. That's how we should move on. But normally, it's not the way we should go about it. Rather, this is how things are. So this is how I'm thinking of that. What they were doing there is ignorance. They don't.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, because you're saying that Paul thought he was doing the right thing.
That's it.
Yeah, until, the Damascus, to on the road to the Damascus, and then he changed. So it's not that people always know and then choose to do wrong.
Choosing wrong, no.
And I think there was both, because remember when Jesus asked them about the Gospel of John? He said, who's it from? Is it from man or is it from God? And they didn't answer the question.
No.
And the reason they didn't answer the question is because they knew he had, right? Because if they said it was from man, then the people would have been upset. But if he said it's from God, he said, well, why didn't you follow him? So they knew to some degree that he was who he said he was.
Well, why can't you both be right? Because I think in some situations that's true. I think in some
I think
situations.
Paul's a great example of being so hard-hearted that he was just going to ignore all of that because he just did not want to believe. I mean, Paul was converted by Jesus Christ himself. So that was a hard one to do. So Christ did it. There's a lot of people who are walking around blind and angry because they just didn't want to see
That's right.
what was right in front of them.
Jesus confronted Saul. Jesus confronts these Pharisees. He's there in person, teaching them day after day, and they don't get it. They don't change. Paul, why was Paul chosen as the apostle to the Gentiles? Because the Lord knew Paul, when he confronted it, Paul would change. Your Saul would change into Paul if you. But these other people didn't.
But don't you think that he thought that he was doing the right thing though?
Saul, yes,
Yes.
oh yeah. Yeah, he said, I did it in ignorance.
Mhm.
He said.
Right.
And then he says, I came to you with a simple, speaking plainly, simply,
Yeah.
and I preached Christ crucified and nothing more. Because there's nothing, the reason people are in ignorance, because they were looking to the law, and that wasn't ever, that wasn't the end. That wasn't, the law was to point towards our Savior. And he's standing right in front of them, they couldn't see him.
And they should have known.
They should have known because of the law.
It's quite.
I struggle with that
We're
so much.
we're losing power on our. We're past time. Thank you. We don't cover a lot of verses, but I think we do a good job.